Ladies and gentlemen, today, I want to shine a light on a painful but often hidden family dynamic, how narcissistic parents create division between siblings through the roles of the golden child and the scapegoat. In a narcissistic household, the structure of relationships is unlike that of a healthy family system. Instead of being rooted in love, empathy, and mutual respect, the dynamics revolve around control, image management, and the fulfillment of the parent's emotional world. The parent does not perceive their children as individuals with separate identities, feelings, and needs. Instead, they view them as extensions of themselves, tools to be used, or objects that exist to regulate their fragile sense of self-worth. This distortion of perception lays the groundwork for roles that are not chosen freely by the children, but rather imposed upon them to serve the parent's ego. Narcissistic parents often struggle with a deep fear of inadequacy, rejection, or loss of control. To protect themselves from confronting these internal insecurities, they create a family system that shields them from reality. In this system, children are cast into rigid roles that maintain the parents' desired balance of admiration and dominance. Each child becomes a piece in a psychological game of chess, their individuality minimized, their purpose dictated. These roles are not temporary phases but deeply entrenched expectations that shape the child's self-concept, often persisting long into adulthood. The most common roles in such families are the golden child and the scapegoat, though there may also be invisible children, lost children, or caretaker children depending on the number of siblings. The golden child is elevated, praised, and held up as the symbol of the parent's success. Their achievements are celebrated not because of genuine pride in the child's individuality, but because those achievements reflect well on the parent. The scapegoat, in contrast, is burdened with blame and criticism. Any problem, failure, or source of shame within the family is projected onto this child, allowing the parent to maintain the illusion of perfection. The scapegoat becomes the emotional outlet for the parent's unresolved anger and insecurity. In this environment, the parent carefully manages the children's roles to keep themselves in a position of power. By offering conditional approval to the golden child and withholding it from the scapegoat, the parent fosters rivalry and mistrust between siblings. This ensures that the children remain divided, each desperate in their own way to earn love or escape rejection. The golden child may learn to suppress their own authenticity, always striving to perform, while the scapegoat often internalizes a deep sense of inadequacy and shame. Both roles serve the same function, to maintain the parent's fragile self-image and to prevent the children from uniting against the dysfunction at the core of the household. The atmosphere in a narcissistic family is often unpredictable and emotionally unstable. Affection, if it appears at all, is inconsistent and conditional. The parent may praise one child lavishly one day and withdraw affection the next, keeping everyone in a constant state of emotional vigilance. The children learn to adapt to the parent's moods, tiptoeing around anger, or eagerly performing for praise, but rarely feeling secure enough to simply be themselves. Love becomes transactional, tied to obedience, performance, or the willingness to accept blame. This system is damaging because it robs children of the opportunity to develop a stable sense of identity. Instead of discovering who they are, they learn who they must be to avoid rejection or gain approval. Authenticity is sacrificed in favor of survival. The golden child may grow into adulthood with an exaggerated sense of responsibility, perfectionism, and a fear of failure, while the scapegoat may battle feelings of worthlessness, chronic self-doubt, and difficulty trusting others. Even if the roles shift over time, the imprint of these dynamics remains, shaping how individuals view themselves and others long after they leave the household. The narcissistic family dynamic is therefore less about nurturing growth and more about preserving the parent's carefully constructed self-image. Children are used as mirrors or shields, their humanity overlooked in the service of the parent's ego. What emerges is not a family built on unconditional love, but a hierarchy of roles designed to regulate the emotions of one individual at the expense of everyone else. The golden child, in a narcissistic family, is often viewed as the embodiment of the parent's idealized self. From the outside, this child may appear lucky, privileged, or favored, but beneath the surface lies a deeply complex and often painful role. The pedestal they are placed on is not one of genuine love and acceptance, but one built on the parent's relentless need for validation. The golden child is praised excessively, admired, and set apart from their siblings, but the admiration is conditional, tied directly to how well they uphold the image the parent wants to project to the world. From an early age, the golden child learns that their worth is not inherent but earned. Every compliment, every moment of affection, and every instance of pride shown by the parent comes at a cost. They are celebrated not for who they are but for what they do, how they perform, how they behave, how they represent the family's reputation. If they excel in school, sports, or other achievements, it becomes evidence of the parent's greatness. If they falter, underperform, or fail, the the pedestal they stand on begins to wobble, threatening rejection or disappointment. This conditional approval forces the golden child into a constant state of vigilance, striving always to maintain the carefully curated image of perfection. The identity of the golden child is shaped not by their own desires but by the expectations imposed upon them. They may be encouraged to pursue activities the parent values rather than those they genuinely enjoy. Their talents are not nurtured for personal fulfillment but exploited as proof of the parent's superior parenting. Even their behavior within the home is policed, as they are expected to serve as the model child, the one who never rebels, never embarrasses, and never questions authority. In many ways, the golden child becomes a living trophy, displayed to reinforce the parent's ego. This excessive praise and idealization, however, comes with invisible chains. Because the golden child is seen as an extension of the parent, they are not allowed to make mistakes without consequences. Any misstep feels catastrophic, as though it risks shattering the fragile pedestal they have been placed upon. The child internalizes the belief that failure is not simply a part of learning but a betrayal of their identity. As a result, many golden children grow up with perfectionistic tendencies, an overwhelming fear of failure, and a deep struggle with authenticity. They learn to hide their true selves beneath a mask of competence and achievement, fearing that vulnerability will expose them as unworthy of love. The relationship between the golden child and their siblings is also heavily affected. Their elevated status often creates tension, jealousy, and resentment, particularly when one sibling is cast as the scapegoat. The golden child may feel pressure to maintain their role even when it damages their bond with their siblings, because stepping down from the pedestal would risk losing the parent's approval. In some cases, they may even unconsciously participate in the scapegoating process, aligning with the parent in order to secure their own favored position. This can create a lifelong wedge in sibling relationships, further isolating the golden child from sources of genuine support and connection. Despite appearing privileged, the golden child often experiences a profound sense of emptiness. Because they are praised for an image rather than their authentic self, they may feel unseen, even in their moments of triumph. Their accomplishments are claimed by the parent, leaving little room for personal pride or ownership. This can lead to confusion about identity, as the golden child struggles to distinguish between what they genuinely want and what was imposed upon them. The constant pressure to succeed and to embody perfection can also lead to anxiety, burnout, and a fragile self-esteem that depends entirely on external validation. Over time, the golden child becomes trapped in a cycle of striving and performing. They may appear confident on the surface, but internally they wrestle with feelings of inadequacy, terrified that one failure could expose them as unworthy. Their role, while seemingly amiable, is a form of captivity, forcing them to live a life defined not by who they truly are but by who they are expected to be. The scapegoat in a narcissistic family occupies one of the most painful and misunderstood roles within the household. While the golden child is elevated and praised, the scapegoat is burdened with blame, criticism, and rejection. They are unfairly cast as the problem, the source of conflict, and the one who embodies the family's dysfunction. The narcissistic parent projects their own flaws, insecurities, and unresolved issues onto this child, turning them into a convenient vessel for everything that feels uncomfortable or shameful. In this way, the scapegoat becomes the emotional punching bag of the family, absorbing anger, hostility, and disappointment that truly belongs to the parent. From an early age, the scapegoat learns that no matter what they do, it will never be enough. Even small mistakes are magnified, and successes are ignored, minimized, or reframed as insignificant. If they bring home a good grade, it might be dismissed as luck. If they attempt to assert themselves, they are called defiant, rebellious, or ungrateful. Their very existence becomes a stage upon which the family's frustrations are played out, with the narcissistic parent ensuring that this child carries the narrative of being difficult, flawed, or unworthy. This distorted perception isolates the scapegoat and convinces them that they are inherently broken. One of the cruelest aspects of this role is that the scapegoat often tells the truth. They may be the sibling who notices the dysfunction, who refuses to conform, or who challenges the parent's false image. Their honesty threatens the fragile illusion the parent has built, and instead of being acknowledged, it is punished. The scapegoat becomes the target because they expose what others are too afraid or conditioned to see. By labeling this child as the problem, the narcissistic parent diverts attention away from their own toxic behavior, ensuring that the rest of the family colludes, sometimes knowingly, sometimes unconsciously, in blaming the scapegoat. This dynamic often bleeds into relationships with siblings. The golden child, rewarded for loyalty and compliance, may join in the scapegoating as a way of protecting their own privileged role. Other siblings may distance themselves out of fear of becoming targets themselves. As a result, the scapegoat is often left isolated not only from the parent but also from the very siblings who might otherwise have been sources of comfort and support. The scapegoat becomes the outcast, standing apart from the family system, carrying the weight of rejection while simultaneously seeing the dysfunction more clearly than anyone else. The psychological consequences of being scapegoated are profound. Repeated criticism, rejection, and blame chip away at self-esteem, leaving the scapegoat with deep feelings of inadequacy, shame, and self-doubt. Many grow up believing they are fundamentally flawed, internalizing the family's projections as truth. They may develop a heightened sensitivity to rejection, an overwhelming fear of failure, or a tendency to overcompensate by becoming perfectionistic in an effort to disprove the narrative imposed upon them. In adulthood, scapegoats often struggle with trust, intimacy, and boundaries, as the wounds of betrayal and abandonment run deep. At the same time, however, the scapegoat role can foster qualities that, though born from pain, hold great strength. Because they are forced to question the family system, scapegoats may develop a sharper sense of empathy, resilience, and independence. They often become truth seekers, unwilling to accept superficial answers or false appearances. Their suffering grants them insight into human behavior, giving them the capacity to recognize injustice and to stand against it. Yet even these strengths are often hard-won, forged in the fire of rejection and misunderstanding, and they come at the cost of profound emotional scars. The scapegoat lives in a paradox, vilified within the family while often holding the clearest perspective on its dysfunction. They carry blame that does not belong to them, enduring ridicule and rejection in order to preserve the narcissistic parent's fragile self-image. Though they may long for acceptance and belonging, what they receive instead is projection, criticism, and isolation. Their childhood is defined not by unconditional love but by conditional rejection, a constant reminder that in the narcissistic family system, one child must bear the weight of everything that the parent refuses to face. In healthy families, sibling rivalry is often a natural but manageable part of growing up. Children may compete for attention, resources, or recognition, but in balanced households, these conflicts are resolved with guidance, fairness, and love. In narcissistic families, however, sibling rivalry is not a passing phase but a carefully orchestrated strategy. The narcissistic parent deliberately fosters jealousy, competition, and mistrust between siblings, using division as a way to maintain control and prevent unity. Instead of nurturing cooperation and mutual respect, the parent ensures that children are pitted against one another, each vying for scraps of affection, approval, or acknowledgement. This manipulation begins early. The parent assigns roles such as the golden child and the scapegoat, ensuring that one child is elevated while another is demeaned. The golden child may be praised excessively in front of the scapegoat, reinforcing the idea that worth is conditional and comparative. The scapegoat may be criticized more harshly when compared to the golden child, creating resentment not only toward the parent but also toward the favored sibling. The household becomes a stage of constant comparison, where one child's success automatically highlights the other's failure. The parent thrives on this imbalance, as it keeps both children focused on each other rather than on the dysfunction at the core of the family system. The deliberate cultivation of mistrust serves a crucial purpose for the narcissistic parent. By keeping siblings at odds, the parent eliminates the risk of alliance. If children were to unite, they might challenge the parent's authority, expose their manipulative behavior, or seek comfort in each other rather than depending solely on the parent for validation. To prevent this, the parent subtly sows seeds of division through favoritism, gossip, or inconsistent treatment. They may confide in one child about the shortcomings of another, creating triangulation and fostering suspicion. They may use backhanded compliments, praising one child at the expense of the other, such as saying, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" Or "At least your brother knows how to behave." These tactics create an environment where children learn to see each other as rivals rather than allies. The psychological impact of this enforced rivalry is profound. Instead of forming healthy sibling bonds characterized by trust, empathy, and companionship, siblings in narcissistic families often develop relationships marked by competition, envy, and distance. The golden child may feel superior but secretly burdened by the need to maintain their status. The scapegoat may feel resentful, rejected, and alienated, believing their sibling is the enemy rather than recognizing the manipulation behind the scenes. Even when siblings are aware on some level of the unfairness, the conditioning runs so deep that mistrust often persists well into adulthood. This dynamic also disrupts the natural development of empathy. In environments where survival depends on comparison and competition, children are less likely to empathize with each other's struggles. The golden child may ignore or minimize the scapegoat's pain to protect their own position, while the scapegoat may harbor anger and bitterness toward the golden child for benefiting from favoritism. Both children lose the opportunity to form a genuine, supportive bond, robbed of the chance to see each other as teammates navigating the challenges of childhood together. The manipulation of sibling relationships further isolates each child emotionally. The golden child becomes isolated on their pedestal, unable to show weakness or fear losing favor. The scapegoat becomes isolated in their rejection, convinced that no one in the family truly understands them. The very people who might have been natural allies against the dysfunction are instead conditioned to see each other through the distorted lens created by the parent. This ensures that the narcissistic parent remains at the center of power, the ultimate authority figure whose approval must be sought at all costs. The legacy of this rivalry can follow siblings into adulthood, shaping their self-concept and their ability to trust others. Some may remain estranged, unable to reconcile the roles they were forced into. Others may struggle with feelings of competitiveness in friendships, workplaces, or romantic relationships, reenacting the dynamics that were normalized in childhood. The seeds of jealousy and mistrust planted by the parent do not easily dissolve with time, as they become embedded in the very way siblings view each other and themselves. The roles of golden child and scapegoat may seem different on the surface, one wrapped in praise, the other in blame, but both carry heavy burdens that extend far beyond childhood. The golden child is praised into performance, while the scapegoat is shamed into silence. Each path leads to wounds that are deeply internalized, shaping their identities, relationships, and sense of self well into adulthood. What looks like privilege for one and rejection for the other are in fact two sides of the same dysfunctional coin, both designed to uphold the fragile ego of the narcissistic parent rather than nurture the authentic development of the child. For the golden child, the cost of being placed on a pedestal is the erosion of authenticity. They are loved only for what they can achieve, how they can perform, or how well they represent the family's image. This conditional acceptance creates a lifelong pressure to succeed, to be flawless, to never disappoint. As a result, many golden children grow into adults who are chronic people pleasers, constantly bending themselves to meet the expectations of others. Their sense of identity becomes intertwined with external validation. Grades, jobs, relationships, and achievements all become measures of whether they are worthy of love. Beneath the polished exterior often lies a gnawing fear of failure and an internal emptiness that no amount of success can fill. Golden children also struggle with perfectionism. They learn that mistakes are not opportunities for growth but threats to their value. This relentless pursuit of flawlessness often leads to anxiety, burnout, and a harsh inner critic that mirrors the parent's voice. Even when they achieve great things, they may feel no genuine pride. Because accomplishments are never experienced as their own, they belong to the image they were forced to uphold. Many golden children also carry guilt, realizing later in life how their privileged roles strained their relationship with siblings, particularly the scapegoat, yet feeling trapped by the role they were conditioned to play. The scapegoat, on the other hand, suffers in a way that is more visible yet equally destructive. Cast as the family's problem, they absorb blame, criticism, and rejection until they believe the narrative themselves. Their self-esteem is eroded early, leaving them with a deep sense of inadequacy and shame. Growing up in an environment where love is withheld and criticism is constant, the scapegoat internalizes the belief that they are inherently flawed, unworthy of affection, and destined to be rejected. This distorted self-image often follows them into adulthood, where they may struggle to trust others, set boundaries, or believe they deserve healthy relationships. The emotional trauma endured by scapegoats manifests in different ways. Some develop a heightened sensitivity to rejection, fearing abandonment in every relationship. Others may withdraw, becoming hyper-independent as a way of protecting themselves from further pain. The scapegoat often carries unresolved anger, sadness, and confusion, knowing on some level that they were treated unfairly yet still battling the ingrained belief that they were somehow at fault. Because they were denied the chance to feel seen and valued, many scapegoats grow into adults who long deeply for validation but are simultaneously afraid of it, fearing that closeness will only lead to more rejection. Despite the differences in roles, both golden children and scapegoats suffer from a fractured sense of identity. Neither grows up with the freedom to discover who they truly are. The golden child's identity is overshadowed by the constant demand to perform, while the scapegoat's is buried under layers of blame and criticism. Both roles deny children the unconditional love and safety necessary to form a secure sense of self. The result is adults who may excel outwardly but feel hollow inside, or adults who may struggle openly with pain and rejection, yet possess deep insight into dysfunction that others overlook. The long-term emotional impact extends into relationships, careers, and self-worth. Golden children often find themselves in high-pressure roles, overachieving but unfulfilled, while scapegoats may find themselves drawn to toxic dynamics that mirror their childhood experiences. Both may battle anxiety, depression, or difficulties with intimacy, and both often require years of self-reflection, healing, and boundary setting to reclaim their authentic selves. The shared suffering, though experienced differently, It's a testament to how destructive these imposed roles can be when children are forced to carry the weight of a parent's unmet needs and unresolved insecurities. For those who grew up in narcissistic family systems, one of the most important steps toward healing is understanding that the roles they were forced into were never a reflection of who they truly are. The golden child and the scapegoat often carry their labels into adulthood as if they were permanent truths, when in reality, these identities were survival systems designed by the narcissistic parent to protect their own fragile ego. Breaking free begins with awareness, the recognition that the pedestal and the punching bag are both illusions, created to serve someone else's needs, not the genuine identities of the children themselves. This awareness is often painful. For the golden child, it means confronting the reality that much of the love and praise they received was conditional. They must face the unsettling truth that they were valued more for what they could do than for who they were. This realization can stir guilt for having unknowingly participated in the scapegoating of a sibling, as well as grief for the lost opportunities to live authentically. For the scapegoat, awareness means acknowledging that the rejection, criticism, and blame they endured were never their fault. It requires unraveling years of internalized shame and understanding that their supposed flaws were projections of the parents' dysfunction, not reflections of their worth. Boundaries become essential in this process of liberation. In families where roles were rigidly enforced, boundaries were often absent or violated. Reclaiming one's sense of self requires learning to say no, to define what behaviors are acceptable, and to protect one's emotional space. For the golden child, boundaries may involve resisting the compulsion to constantly perform or please others, learning instead to value rest, imperfection, and authenticity. For the scapegoat, boundaries may mean refusing to accept blame that is not theirs, recognizing manipulative dynamics, and limiting contact with individuals who continue to treat them as though they are the family problem. Healing also involves rewriting the internal narratives that were shaped by these roles. Golden children often grow up with an inner critic that demands perfection, echoing the parents' conditional approval. Scapegoats often grow up with an inner voice that insists they are unworthy or destined for rejection. These voices are not the truth but the residue of years of conditioning. Breaking free requires cultivating new narratives that honor authenticity, self-compassion, and inherent worth. This may involve therapy, journaling, or simply the slow practice of challenging old beliefs with kinder, more accurate ones. Sibling relationships can also play a pivotal role in recovery. When siblings begin to see that the rivalry between them was not natural but manufactured, they may find opportunities for reconciliation. The golden child may come to understand the pain of the scapegoat, while the scapegoat may see the immense pressure carried by the golden child. This recognition does not erase the hard cost, but it creates space for empathy and healing. In some cases, siblings may grow closer as adults once they realize they were both pawns in the same system, each carrying wounds inflicted by the same source. Breaking free from roles also means rediscovering identity outside of the family script. For the golden child, this can involve exploring passions and desires that were once suppressed in favor of pleasing the parent. For the scapegoat, it often means reclaiming confidence and embracing strengths that were overlooked or dismissed. Both roles benefit from reconnecting with the authentic self that was buried beneath layers of expectation, blame, and conditional love. This process of self-discovery can feel uncertain at first, but it becomes a pathway toward autonomy and wholeness. The journey is rarely simple. Old patterns can resurface, and family members who remain invested in the roles may resist change. But with awareness, boundaries, and a commitment to authenticity, individuals can begin to step out of the identities that were imposed upon them and into lives defined by their own choices, values, and truths.